Silence isn't empty. Silence is full. It's full of everything else that we normally overlook. Welcome to the Foster Your Voice podcast with me, Christy Foster. After a 30-year career in music and theater, I never imagined I'd be coaching trial attorneys. But once I entered your world, I quickly realized how critical and underutilized voice is in the courtroom. The truth is, you don't win trials with brute strength. You win with your voice. I'll give you tools to unlock your voice so you can communicate not just with purpose, but on purpose. If you want quick action tips to help you stay calm and in control, keep jurors engaged, and inspire your listeners to action, all through the power of your voice, you're in the right place. I'm Christy Foster, and I'm here to help you foster your voice. Hello, Foster fam. We've got a good episode for you today. I get excited about everything that we talk about, so I'm not sure today is better than others, but you'll have to decide. For me, that would be like trying to pick a favorite child, but now I don't have children, so I think the metaphor is starting to break down a little bit here, but you've heard me talk about how powerful and necessary pauses are and how impactful active silence is. I'll post the links to a few earlier episodes that cover those topics, but today we're going to talk about how not every silence is equal. There are different intentions to the silence, and you can use each of them with different strategies. Okay, so before I totally nerd out and before we dissect silence, first, I want to talk about a different way of speaking. As we're quickly approaching the last quarter of the year, I can't believe it, it's just a good time to reboot some mindset tools. Check in with yourself, your goals, any soundtracks that might be broken that you're continuing to use. And I'm doing something similar as part of John Acuff's goal community. You know, I love John Acuff. And I just had a great reminder that if the voices in my head don't sound like something that I would say or the tone that I would use when talking to a good friend, then there's probably some cause to challenge it and to change the approach, to rewrite some things. And if you wouldn't talk to a friend that way, then don't talk to yourself that way. I'm all in on this neurological rewiring, these rewiring neural pathways. Say that 10 times fast as I try to build some new habits. So I was really grateful for this reel that I came across that introduced me to distanced self-talk and the benefits of it. Are you familiar with this already? I guess I'm familiar with it as a concept, but I didn't know the name of it. Distanced self-talk. It's basically talking to yourself out loud in the third person. So instead of just talking to myself, which I do all the time, I would use my name and say, Christy, whatever, whatever, out loud. When you use your name instead of I, your brain perceives the situation with a little bit of distance. And this decreases the activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain that ramps up fear and stress and emotional intensity. So instead, it increases activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex, that's the region linked to reasoning, planning, and self-control. This shift helps you respond with logic and perspective instead of just raw emotion. Now, normally, I talk, like, why am I so bad at this? Keeps us stuck in rumination, kind of obsessing, having difficulty just letting go and moving on, feeling just stuck. By switching to your name, like Christy, you've done hard things before, just breathe. That activates that self distancing, similar to how you'd coach or talk to a friend. Creating that psychological space helps to make stressful events feel less overwhelming. Maybe give it a try this week and then let me know how it goes. I'll also put the link to the reel that I saw in the show notes so you can check it out too. But let's do some neurological rewiring this week. Hey, real quick, if your jurors look confused when you say liability, standard of care, or damages, they're not tuning out because they don't care. They're tuning out because they don't speak law. I've put together a free guide called Top 20 Legal Terms to Avoid and What to Say Instead. It'll help you simplify your language without losing credibility, so your message actually lands. Download it now at fostervoicestudio.com/top20 or click the link in the show notes. All right, back to the episode. As I mentioned earlier, today we're talking about silence, which I see the irony. I mean, at first glance, it might feel counterintuitive for a podcast about voice to talk about silence, but here we are. The truth is that silence is just as much a part of your communication toolkit as sound. And in the courtroom, it can be one of the most powerful tools you have. Now, you probably already know this, but I grew up in a family of singers. My dad was a professional gospel musician, and music was just part of our everyday life. Gospel, jazz, choral singing, musical theater. That's my heritage. My undergraduate degree was in classical vocal performance. But you might not know that I've also been a pianist all my life. So that brings me to an unusual piece of piano music by John Cage. I put it in quotes if you're not watching on YouTube. Piano music by John Cage. It was written in 1952 and it's called 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Now, what is so unusual about this piece is that in it, the performer doesn't play a single note, not one. Instead, the score simply says tacit, which in music speak is be silent. So, what happens for those 4 minutes and 33 seconds? The music becomes the ambient sounds in the room. Coughs, shuffling, chairs creaking, a bird chirping outside, unwrapping candies, the audience breathing. John Cage's point was this: silence isn't empty. Silence is full. It's full of everything else that we normally overlook. And that's exactly how silence works in the courtroom. A pause isn't nothing happening. A pause is everything happening. Jurors are processing, connecting the dots, making meaning out of what was just said. And if you can learn to wield that silence strategically, you stop rushing through your case and you start letting your words land. Now, let's just back this up with some science for a minute. Your jurors' brains can't simultaneously take in new information and process it deeply. That's just how human cognition works. Neuroscientists call it cognitive load. When you rush through your points without pausing, jurors start to drop information. They literally can't keep up. They are pushing against their cognitive load. You're making them push against their cognitive load. But when you pause, their working memory gets a breather. They encode what you just said, they connect it to what they already know, and they store it in a way they can recall later in deliberations. Pausing is the gift of time. Without it, your jurors are constantly playing catch up and they'll miss the very details you wanted them to remember. So, silence isn't empty, it's active, it's doing the heavy lifting of your advocacy. And that brings us back to John Cage. His piece has three movements, three distinct types of silence. So let's just walk through them. The first movement is the anticipation pause. To start the piece, the silence begins the moment the pianist lifts the lid of the piano. The audience leans in, expecting sound. In trial, this is the pause before you deliver something important, before you deliver it. The jury leans in, waiting to receive it. And you create this type of silence with your posture. Plant your feet, relax your shoulders, breathe low and slow, hold eye contact, and let them anticipate. The second movement then is the impact pause. Now, Cage marked each movement separately, so listeners were forced to notice, oh, something new has begun. For you, this is the pause after you deliver a key point. Don't rush on, just stand tall, keep still, let your words echo in their minds. This is the space where jurors replay your statement. They reframe it into their own terms and begin to internalize it. If you move on too quickly, you steal that chance from them. Now, the third movement is the reset pause. And Cage ends with silence, closing the piece. This is reflection space. For attorneys, this pause is about transition. It's the breath you take before shifting to a new concept. It signals, hey, what came before matters. And now we're moving on. This might be as simple as a softened expression, a deep but quiet breath, or even just taking a couple of steps to a new position. That small change gives your jurors space to reset too. So, three types of silence: anticipation, impact, and reset. Now, let me just say the thing we're all thinking. Silence can feel scary. You might be afraid that you'll lose momentum if you pause too long. Won't jurors think I've lost my train of thought? Actually, the opposite is true. When you can hold silence comfortably, you project calm authority. You look in control, and people trust leaders who don't seem rushed or frantic or desperate to fill the air. If you are not comfortable in the pause, we are not comfortable in the pause. But when you breathe, stay tall, and keep your presence alive in the silence, we relax too. So, how do you start using silence strategically in your own courtroom work? First, you have to notice your habits. Just bring awareness to your normal routine. Do you rush? Do you fill every gap with ums and so? Awareness is step one. Then, as I always say, you have to practice off stage, so to speak. Pause after sentences in conversation with a friend. Just notice. Notice how they lean in. Silence is a skill, and it's built in low stakes situations. Third, you have to plan for your silence. Even in your notes, just mark your opening or closing notes with intentional pauses. Literally write pause or do those two little lines. The more you plan them, the more natural they'll start to feel. And finally, you have to trust your jurors. They need time to process. Give it to them. Don't be afraid of their silence either. It means they're working. So here's your big takeaways for today. Silence isn't absence, it's presence. When you hold space with confidence, you allow jurors to think, to feel, and to truly absorb your words. Anticipation pauses pull them in. Impact pauses help them digest. And reset pauses let them breathe and move with you. Your words don't evaporate when you go quiet. They settle, they sink in, and they stay. So the next time you're tempted to rush through, don't. Trust the silence and let it work for you. Thanks for joining me today, Foster Fam. If this episode resonated, I'd love it if you'd share it with a colleague or left a quick review. It really does help other trial attorneys find the show, and it encourages me. So until next time, keep fostering your voice. Thanks for pulling up a seat with me today and for being part of the Foster Fam. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave a review or a comment so I can give you a shout out on a future episode. During the week, you can find me on Instagram at Foster Voice Studio, where I'm dropping little nuggets of vocal technique and leadership wisdom. You can also join my mailing list by visiting fostervoicestudio.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. I'll send a weekly vocal tip every Tuesday directly to your inbox. Until then, keep fostering your voice.